Welcome to the Upside Down People podcast, Jaden. So glad to be having a conversation with you. How are you going?
I'm doing good, man. I'm glad to be here. Just having good weather finally in Seattle. It's been like months of rain. It's been great.
Yeah. So I'm keen to have a conversation with you around like faith, creativity, and culture.
Yeah.
I know you're in the creative sort of space. I actually came across your content and your work from the YouTube algorithms
Oh,
uh,
wow. That's
brought me
crazy.
across
No
your work,
way.
and I love it.
Wow, that's wild. That's very unexpected. I haven't
Yeah, well,
posted in
it
like
is.
months on there at least. I've been posting consistently on TikTok and Instagram.
Uh,
That's
yeah,
shocking. That's cool though.
yeah, okay,
Wow,
yeah.
that's
It
insane.
is. It is. It's obviously something you've done is right to be making it across to this side of the world. Other than that, or it might just be what my feed's sort of prioritizing for me. But
Hmm.
yeah, maybe a good place to start would be sharing a bit about your faith journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I became a Christian very early on in my life. I accepted Jesus in a grocery store when I was like 3 or 4 years old with my mom. My family, both of my parents are in ministry. They've been in ministry my entire life, basically. So I have grown up in the Christian faith pretty consistently, have expectations of being a pastor's kid and having that just kind of dominate like, oh, I have to be perfect. I have to keep my family image good. I have to keep my
Right.
image good. I have to like this idea of like, oh, finding my worth and value in others and trying to seem like this overall great person when I'm just going through things like other people. Like my family goes through fights, my family messes up, and I mess up. And it's just hard to do that when I didn't really feel like I had that barrier growing up. And I don't know, through
Mm.
growing up, I guess, and following Jesus and becoming more intentional with my relationship with Jesus and others, I realized that it's really okay to be vulnerable and real with people. And you have to be careful with who you are vulnerable and real with others and like who you choose to be with that. But there are people who genuinely care about you and care about your well-being. So I don't know. That's like a simplified version of my story with Jesus and my walk of faith. It's been like what 16 years now almost. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. That is crazy. It's crazy how you're 3 or 4 when you were like intentional about that decision. How you remember it so starkly at a grocery store. What was it about the grocery store? Was it the fresh produce or the fruit and veg that was just so appealing? Like, tell us about that time.
So yeah, I legitimately was just in the shopping cart, grocery shopping with my mom, and I just asked her, I'm like, okay, so like if I do this with Jesus, like, and I believe that he died for my sins and this and this and this, like just like the whole like generalization of like accepting Jesus into your heart and like believing that he died on a cross and you resurrected from the grave, like just asked her
Mm.
like I believe in like all this. And I'm like, she's like, yeah, and like she asked me like, do you want to pray like that, start following Jesus? And I'm like, yeah, I think I do. So it's just like the process, like going through the frozen food aisle and just like being a kid, being curious, looking at frozen peas and being like, Mom, is this how this is how that process works, right? And she's like, yeah. So it's nothing crazy. It's just kind of unique the place it took place in, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. It's so cool hearing those sort of stories. How even at such a young age, like God's still impressing on people's hearts,
Hmm.
which is so cool. So you mentioned you've like been in that space of church ministry in terms of your parents are both involved there, and you've been a PK. Um, what would you say has been like significant pressures that have played like you found have been placed on you because you're a PK, not necessarily by your parents, but just by I can imagine other people's expectations on how you should behave or speak or act or engage with the world around you.
Yeah, I think the biggest pressure for me was never the fact of like how I should act as a person, um, because I feel like my parents always set it up for me for success, saying, yeah, we're all broken people. And so when
Awesome.
I was going through something like, let's say like, oh, school's tough, or like sports weren't going well, or like I was just like stressed out or worried about something, could be vulnerable about that. It was more the fact like whenever like my family was going through something, or like my parents got into a big fight, and just like normal things that
Mm.
everybody goes through.
Yeah.
And I just didn't feel comfortable sharing with that because they were in ministry and because they were pastors. I felt scared too because I'm like, people like take words out of context and make it they write their own stories. And
Right.
uh, a big thing for me is like my parents got forced out of a church when I was 15, because a lot of people started lies about them, and we got paid money to be
Wow.
quiet about it. My parents did,
Hmm.
and as like severance. But it's like, hey, you be quiet about this. We talk good, you talk good, and then they ended up talking poorly about us. So honestly, I shouldn't be
Wow.
a Christian right now with everything I've been through in my life, but God has been like that one,
Right.
like firm, like constant in my life when everything happening, and I'm asking God, why is this happening? Like, why am I stressed out? Why is my family situation like kind of stressful sometimes? Why is this happening in the church? Like, why do I
Right.
feel like I have no community? He's been like that one constant in my life that I could always like lean on. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's like a little more in depth, I guess, of like the
That's a,
church side and like that pressure that I felt, I
yeah.
guess, as a kid.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's fascinating that you say that God's been that firm foundation, that rock for you, because I think I read recently somewhere that currently the church is experiencing like the biggest like walkout of particularly Gen Zs from the church because they're going through this huge deconstruction of their faith, um, where they see. I think it's particularly like a hypocrisy in the church, like you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
is you're sort of told not to gossip or talk behind people's backs, and then like your parents go through something like that. So I can
Yeah.
imagine that would be particularly frustrating for you to have a front row seat of that. Have you experienced that deconstruction of your faith?
I don't think so. I wouldn't ever say I've ever like questioned my faith. Like I think it's healthy to have doubts. I think having doubts and like
Yeah.
actually being critically thinking about your faith and what you believe in is important in any realm. So I think I have never had a thing where I was like, I'm totally tearing this apart though, and like I'm looking in depth. It's been very like, okay, we live in a messed up world, messed up people, and I'm as messed up. And God's been like the
Mm.
firm thing I just always look towards or try to look towards, even in like my brokenness and with sin. That's
Mm.
kind of been my mindset, I
Yeah.
guess, on it.
That's cool. Yeah, what would you say have been like some like particular events or moments that you have felt have shaped your journey and your life and where you find yourself right now?
Yeah, besides like grocery store and church, like being forced out, I definitely think
Yeah,
like
those are some
being
big ones.
yeah, I think like those are probably two core ones. I think probably just 2020 would be a big shift for me because I started doing
Right.
content in the Christian realm around then. So I started like on TikTok doing
Okay.
content in that form, and it I think that was a big momentum shift for me because I feel like I started to truly like dive into scripture more than I did before, build consistent habits in my life, not just because of content,
Mm.
but because of I had time. It's like I didn't have all these distractions constantly fighting for my attention. I could truly just focus on things like building my relationship with God, getting the scripture, and building out a life of prayer. And I think these last 3 years of university too have been really big in forming how I am as a Christian. I go to a Christian university. It's called Southeastern University. It's amazing. I love it. It's such a great community there, and so many other people that have pushed me to become a better believer. And I think
Awesome.
finally, what I would say, I know this is a lot, but this last year I've made a video every single day, and I've consistently posted on TikTok and Instagram about it. And I think that has pushed me and my faith a lot to be
Wow.
just consistent and faithfully consistent, even when it's like, oh, this is a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see how that's a lot of work. That's actually how I came across your content, was
Yeah.
this project that you're currently working on. So yeah, what inspired you or motivated you to like start doing it, posting content every single day? Yeah, tell us a bit about what the project's about and what your hopes were and are for it.
Yeah, so uh, like I said, been creating content on TikTok, all that for years now. I was at one point posting 6 videos a day on TikTok. I was posting a crazy amount
That
during
is
like
unreal.
2020, 2021, like insane. Like I was on trends before a lot of people, and I was just doing that so much. Then I got tired, and I was like, I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I was doing it for like the views constantly going up or like getting likes. Like not every video was like that, but like in the deep core of my
Yeah.
heart was like, oh, if my video doesn't perform this certain way, I failed. And like I put like that standard of success, a performance in that. And I
Yeah.
think I took kind of a break where I didn't post as much throughout a few year spans once I got to college. One, because I didn't want to just be known as the guy who made content. I wanted to be known as Jaden, and I want to be people to actually like me for me and not for what I do. So I kind of
Yeah.
reassessed like what it meant to like make content in my life. And last year I was actually here. I'm currently living with my best friend's like family, and I was in here sitting on his couch, just like
Awesome.
I'm like, okay, I need to like do something. And at that time, like people were doing like that Project 50 or Project 30, like bettering yourself project. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool to do. I wonder if I could do that for like a whole year and like do it for 365 days. And I was like, this is gonna be crazy. And it has shifted a lot throughout the entire time I've been doing it. There's definitely stages that is like in the beginning, like
Yeah.
the first like 14 days, I have no clue what I was doing. Like I was like, I'm just kind of like setting these goals to like run, to like read my word, and to post a video about something, and I really don't know what that looks like. I am very confused. Like, didn't really have a full vision of it yet, but it kind of grew
Right.
into something over time, into like where I was like in the fall I took a hermeneutics class, so I was doing a lot of exegesis and throughout the fall and breaking down scripture and what that looks like. Or went from vlogging, went to like more storytelling, to now like where I'm just like speaking like a podcast on my videos, like for a minute and a half and just going with it. So it's taken a lot of forms and shaping it and goals, and it has been different in how I have
Right.
viewed it because with short form content during that time, no one was really making minute plus videos last year at all. And now you're starting to see that be a more consistent thing with TikTok and how their algorithm works. But I was just trying to do something new and push the boundaries because this shouldn't be a successful thing at all. It shouldn't bring any success because it's going totally against the grain. Like, there's not many people doing
Right.
minute 30 videos on social media like Instagram and TikTok. And that sounds so weird for like a YouTube sense where like there's videos that go for 3 hours. And that's like the content I love. I
Right.
love watching podcasts. I love watching like series of like people like I don't know if you ever heard this series called Jet Lag. It's like they take this game, they play like board games around the world, and it's like super sick. But I love like watching series, watching like good products, and it's like I don't like short form that much, but like it's what I do. It's kind of weird, but
Right.
I don't know how I
Yeah.
would like pinpoint like what like the overall vision of this project is anymore. It's just kind of like, oh, I'm almost there. I have 13 days left. Like it's kind of wild at this point.
That is crazy. 13 days left.
Yeah.
So what would you say have you found, like, what have you enjoyed most about this experience over the past year?
I think it pushed me to be more disciplined for sure. I think that is like enjoyable and not enjoyable at the same time. I enjoy like growing and
Right.
learning, so I think it pushed me to learn and push boundaries in my life, and to start setting my priorities straight and like what do prioritizing things in my life looks like. I think I've enjoyed just being able to interact with people because I felt like I've been able to build more relationships with people through doing a little bit of a longer form video than other people can do in a short form media. as like those platforms. And I think I've been able to connect with people and be able to truly disciple people and have conversations with people, mainly through Instagram. But it's been
Yeah.
really cool to see how that has grown and worked out. It's been really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And have you had moments, well, I'm sure you have had moments where you felt like you're not worth it, or you're unable to like produce what people would find helpful and encouraging, like that.
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of creatives experience that inner critic voice, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely this past month it has been that way for me. I feel like I've been shifting a lot. I currently, oh, 3 weeks ago now, I made a drive from Florida to Washington, and it's like a 22-hour drive. So I'm driving such a long time to get here, and I was shifting environments
Wow.
constantly, like stopping different places, stopped at my family's house, stayed a week with them, went to my grandparents' house, stayed like a few weeks with them. Then I finally got here, and I like changed my environment so much. I was like, one, it's just hard to like produce content now because like been shifting my environment so much. I haven't had like a consistency in my life. But two, it's just like I've been doing
Right.
this also for so long now that I'm like, what's something that I can do that's like different and like push myself again and like shift that. And it's like
Right.
I have no clue, and I'm trying to figure that out. And it's that's probably this last month has been the most difficult month out of any of the months that I've like been doing this project.
Wow.
And I think that makes
Yeah.
sense because I'm almost done. It's like, oh, I'm so close.
That's it. Yeah. Well, I've never had a challenge in terms of posting content every single day, but I do know what it's like to come to the end of like a challenge that you've set yourself, and it's those last moments. So I did like an ultra marathon on
Yeah.
the southwest coast of where I live. So I think it was like 90 miles or something like that, and like the rugged sand and mountains and things like that. And I
Oh,
set myself a goal of doing it in 24 hours and was raising
yeah.
money for a charity. But I clearly remember the hardest part were like it was would have been the last mile or 2 miles or kilometer,
Hmm.
like the last 3 kilometers.
Yeah, the three K.
And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's like that final stretch. You've done pretty much the lion's share, the bulk of what you set yourself out to do, but it's
Hmm.
just like that final stretch is so difficult. So I get what you're saying there.
Yeah.
Is like you've changed environments. You can see the finish line, and it's just sort of pushing through, finding those motivations and things like that to get you through. So yeah,
Yeah.
I get what a huge challenge. Have you found it like what's the response been like for people watching your content, and um like whether it be friends or family or just strangers like myself who come across it? What's been the feedback like for you?
I think just like something funny I see from it now is just like one, people, it's like part of their daily routine. Like, like they get on their phone and they're like, "Oh, I've been waiting for this all night, or I've been waiting for this all day to see this video." And it's like every single time, it's like they are looking forward to it. And I'm like, that's crazy that this has become a habit in other people's lives, that they are
Right.
like integrating it into this life. And I think from like, I think there's two different perspectives, right? Like from like my family and friends who are like, "Oh, this is cool that you're doing this," and it's kind of crazy too. Like it's kind of crazy that you're doing this. And there's like
Yeah.
the social aspect of like strangers, like, "Oh, this is just content being posted sometimes," and they don't understand it until like they've seen 10 of my videos. And I remember so vividly one of my friends saying, like, you're gonna hit like 100 days. Like he's like, I think you can make it to 100 days, but then you feel like, ah, it's just not worth it anymore. I'm just gonna quit. And I'm like, yeah, but at that point, I'm like, I'm so close to being done. Like comparatively, I'm like, I'm 100 days deep at that point. Like I might as well just finish. And I think,
Right.
I told him then, I was like, I think the hardest part for me is gonna be the end because I'm gonna be so done with it. Not in like a negative way, but I'm like, I'm so
Oh,
close. Like I
yeah.
want to
Yeah.
be done. Like and do something that I can take more time with and develop. And I think I've grown a lot as a creative and like how I edit and how I formulate my videos and story tell and write and script and all that. I think that's all grown exponentially doing this.
Mm.
So yeah.
Awesome. And so I'm particularly fascinated around the areas of like that digital space and social media,
Hmm.
and how it impacts, I suppose, our habits and formations and things like that. So I'm sure you're aware of like how social media can be extremely addictive, the way
Yeah.
the back end of it works. So how do you, as a creative and as someone who's trying to implement good habits, like you mentioned before, and disciplines in your life, how have you found that it's impacted um, either your own identity, or how have you noticed it impacting the identity of people around you?
Mm. Yeah. I guess I'll answer this for myself first. I feel like it hasn't impacted my identity as much during this project as it has in years past. And I think that's just because I've learned from like, oh, I put priorities into like what I did. Like it, that's where I found my value for a little bit. And I just put that value. I'm like, that's not the point of it. I'm trying to serve others right now. Like it's not about me. It's about serving the audience that I'm like serving. And I think oftentimes we can use social media as a distraction and an addiction. Like I have been at fault for this, like spending so much time on social media and scrolling, especially during 4 years ago in COVID when we had nothing else to do. It's like I think that
Right.
just starts the habit of that addiction for a lot of people because they are trapped and they couldn't do anything else, for a lot of people at least. And it was just hard for them
Mm.
to go do stuff. So it just became a habit for them and it became more addictive. For me, I personally, I don't think if God didn't want me to do this, I don't think I would be on social media, at least as much as I am. I think I would just probably have it deleted most of the time. I honestly just don't enjoy it. And it's just not fun. Like, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoy it for some reasons, and it's not for like the other reasons people have it. I just feel like sometimes it blocks my time and it takes up so much time of my life. Like,
Right.
I look at my screen time and I'm like, I spend an it's better now. Like right now, it's like an hour and a half on Instagram, and I'm like, okay, I can validate that. Like some of it's like me scrolling for personal enjoyment and posting and interacting with people. Like that doesn't seem crazy. But there's been times where it's been like 4 hours, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's just like a day. That's just not healthy. Like for me, it's not healthy for me to be on
Yeah.
there. So it's like setting healthy boundaries with that, because I think if it gets to the point with people and people being addicted to it, I think it's like setting that boundary, that cut off of being like, okay, you need to delete it, you need to block it, you need to do that. But I'm like, I think there's a way to balance it out and like setting up boundaries, whether that's through screen
Mm.
time, whether that's through like apps that provide like you have to wait like 45 seconds to get on the app and actually think about, oh, should I actually be doing this? Is it actually worth my time? And that kicks you off the app and you have to do it again. Like that's like what I do now. Because I'm like, I don't want to constantly be on there for hours and hours and hours. Like I want to be outside in nature and doing what I've enjoyed since I was a kid, like just hanging out with friends, going on
Awesome.
hikes, swimming, you know. So I don't know. It's a balance of that, I guess. And I think
Yeah.
it affects people's like mentally for sure. Like I think it's a big cause of anxiety,
Right.
at least in the past 10 years.
Yeah. No, I think you're 100% correct. Like the stats show that there's been a massive a massive like exponential increase in depression, anxiety, a variety of different other mental health issues. I think since the year, I think it's 2010 when they introduced the like button,
Mm,
and then the endless scroll as well, where it's like you're saying that you just get into this loop and stuck into like this negative validation feedback loop, and it's not good for your mental health if you don't have. I love what you're saying, putting boundaries in place to um, help actually use it as a tool and not be
hmm.
used by it. I think it's
Yeah,
an important distinction to make.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I think
What
another
would you
big
say?
no,
Oh, go for
you
it.
go.
Go for it.
I think we're leading on the same track.
No, no, no,
You
no,
go.
no.
Okay. I
You go.
think a big
I'm.
that's funny. A big thing for me, at least, with social media and like how you use it, at least and how it affects me. I think for a lot of people, and this is like the difference between creators and like people who just use the app or use the platform. Like for me, it's not like, oh, I'm scrolling, looking at everybody else's content and like, oh, this sucks. Like I wish I had their life. I wish my life was like this. Or like, I'm like, oh, they're doing something cool. Like that's cool to catch up with them because like that's not my primary focus of social media. That's like my secondary focus. It's like my worry, my stress is like
Awesome.
when I'm like, oh, I have to perform to this level. I have to post a video. I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to like reach these like fake milestones in my mind that aren't really like that important, and that's where like the worry comes. So I think there's like two like conflicting
Yeah.
interests when it comes to like social media, YouTube in that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great point that you made, that yeah, distinguishing between the performance of it and then also the pressure of like comparison. So finding where you sit in those two spaces, and then how would you say you've navigated that journey for yourself in terms of that performance, production, and success?
Yeah, I think the simple answer to that, you post a video every single day and you realize not every single one's gonna be a success. Like I like look at them, I'm like, oh, I'm just trying to impact that one
Right.
person. Like, and it's like shifting your mindset to being like, oh, I could reach hundreds of thousands of people, or like, and if I could, that's awesome. But it's like, that's not gonna last forever. It's more just like, oh, that's cool now.
Awesome.
Eventually it's just like, oh, I'm just posting a video, just getting it done and connecting with people. It's just shifting your mindset and making intentional shifts in your life to
Yeah,
not let that affect you as much. But it takes actually being
I
aware
love
of your
that.
surroundings.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Um, Another question that I love to get your thoughts on, Jaden, is like, what would you say some of the biggest challenges are? Some of the biggest challenges your generation would be facing regarding faith specifically.
Yeah, so I'm in Generation Z. I think the biggest struggle when it comes to faith, I think it's different than a lot of people. I think it's just like, where can I find access to like where I'm worrying? I think that's like a big thing for people. And Gen Z is like, oh, I have a lot of anxiety and like I don't know where to do with it. It's like overly consuming me, or like it's like my identity problem. And it's not just like the hot topic identity problem. It's just like even like me, it's like where do I put my identity in? Do I put my identity in my performance, or do I put my identity in Christ? Right. So it's like
Right,
where does your purpose lie? Where are you seeking your purpose in? And in that you can find, oh, it's in Christ. Your purpose is in Christ, and through that you can like live intentional and then use the giftings that God has given you to make an impact on others, to show them where purpose truly comes from and where the identity can truly be found in. So I think, at least for me, that's what I have seen, at least from my generation. And I'm trying to figure out what's next for the next generation that's coming up at this point,
right.
but that just takes time.
Yeah. So, yeah, great question. How have you found, or what have you noticed are particularly helpful ways to reach them?
Yeah, I feel like it's making that shift. Like I my generation, though we grew up with the internet, like I still remember a time when internet wasn't super accessible to everyone. Like I remember like not having a smartphone. I remember like my parents only having flip phones and we had like a house phone still. I remember like times like that and like seeing that like in my life. And I remember when music wasn't digitalized. I remember when videos weren't digitalized, like YouTube was just coming onto the scene. So it's been like, okay, now we're in an era where those kids have no clue what it looks like to live without the internet. So like, how can we use that most effectively
Right.
as believers, as Christians, not just sole like proprietors, like content creators, like, but also in the church world, because I feel like that's something that we have been lagging behind in like that creative aspect. It's like we don't do it well, or we just try to rush it to get people in our buildings on Sunday or get people to our event. But it's like, how can we actually just reach people? And then it's be like, oh, if they show up, they show up. But it's more about making an impact on their lives than reaching our goals or
Yeah.
whatever aspect that looks like.
Yeah, that's it's an interesting point, like in terms of how churches almost in a similar way are trying to get more numbers or use
Hmm.
social media or media to get more numbers and forget that it's actually reaching people is about trying to reach the heart and disciple and journey with people. So
Yeah.
it's like the distraction can be on both sides. Yeah. What
Yeah, for sure.
what have you found? What have been some like unhelpful narratives around like Gen Z and even particularly Gen Alpha, then the next generation coming through in the church?
Yeah, just like narratives I've recently been seeing is just like Gen Z, like they don't work hard, they're like lazy, they like don't put in
Right.
effort, they don't do this and this and this, and then like I look at the other stats and like Gen Z are some of the most entrepreneur like ship generation, like 34% of Gen Z are entrepreneurs. It's like they are truly trying to work hard. It's just not the same way as the last generation.
Right.
It's like most Gen Z is like, I don't want to work a corporate job and go be above and beyond that and kill myself. Like I've seen what that's done to my parents. I've seen what that done to like my older siblings or my aunts and uncles or my cousins that are older than me. I've seen that they are just tired and that's like wearing them out. It's like yes, I'm going to put in my effort, but I'm not going to go above and beyond and kill myself because of that. I'm going to do my job and I'm going to do it well, but I'm not going to kill myself in the process. So I
Right.
think that's like
And what would
people
you?
saying, "Oh, you're not working as
Oh,
hard."
go.
It's
Yeah.
no,
Well,
not yeah.
that's a
You
huge
carry on.
one.
Yeah,
No,
100%.
I was just going to agree with you.
Yeah.
It is a big one that like there's that narrative, like particularly across the Western context where Gen Zs are seen as people who are entitled, self-focused, and really just not willing to put in. I think the classic thing is like a hard day's work. That classic like
Hmm.
mentality of what you'd see a corporate job, a 9 till 5, and associate that with a hard day's work. And how like I can imagine those being pretty like unhelpful in terms of someone trying to form their identity, someone who is really trying to work hard, like you're saying in terms of entrepreneurship, work hard at something, might not have what society says as this is what success looks like, might not have
Hmm.
those goals ticked yet or those boxes ticked yet. Um, how does that impact someone personally, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's like finding the balance of what like even life looks like now because we have AI coming out and like jobs are going to be replaced. And at least in the United States, it's like a lot of my generation that are living in the States are like, what is going to even happen with our country? Like there's like a lot of hopelessness around that because it's just like we are so in the unknown of that. It's kind of like figuring that out. It's like, what does life even look like now? Like, what does it look like to live in the United States? And I think it's just like a process of figuring that out. And like,
Mm,
I don't know how to put it to words fully yet. It's like something I'm still figuring out in like my own thought process.
yeah. No, that's completely totally fair enough. It can be very daunting to see like the demise of society, and where I'd say what social media has been unhelpful with in terms of like in our culture is that bipolarization of views as well. So it's like
Hmm.
they pit people against each other. So it's like if you
Yeah.
have a certain view, you feel like, well, I can't actually express this without either offending someone or demonizing someone, which is, I know, like that's not the heart of so many people. Um, but that's what it's done, is it's created these like bipolar sort of teams, and you're either on the
Yeah.
team or you're against it, which is a scary thing to try and participate in.
Yeah, for sure. It is definitely scary. And I think that's it kind of has ruined the conversations that you can have with people. Because before social
Right.
media, you could have a conversation with somebody and be like, oh, we disagree on this, but that doesn't hurt our relationship at all. You know, it's like we
Mm.
disagree, but we know that at the end of the day, like our relationship matters more. But with social media, you can't really tell the tone of somebody's voice instantly. It like takes 400 hours, like just by watching someone on a video form. Not even talking like you're seeing someone's text, like to actually truly trust them or understand them. So it's hard to like have that connection with somebody and to truly like trust them, but also to hear the tone and how they're coming from it. And you see people post and you assume like the worst case scenario from that one person you've seen, right? And it's like, even if it's
Right.
like, oh, they're just posting this and it's nothing and we can agree to disagree and have a conversation about it and actually still have community. But a lot of the times people are like, no, that's not going to happen anymore because of social media. And I think that has been a big divide in social media too, and separating the conversation factor of like learning from each other and learning from others.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. In my studies, one of the biggest things that I found helpful was how dialogue and having conversations is really important in terms of in a healthy society, with people from differing views. But if you turn those into accusations or defenses, it's less of a conversation and more like like you're in a court, you're defending or you're prosecuting, and really you can't build relationships in that setting. It's very hard to try build a flourishing community when you accusing someone of something, or when you can't get past your mind that that's actually another human created in God's image that like he so dearly loves, that he's first called or she's first called a child of God before any of these other opinions weigh into it. And I think we need to get back to seeing people as God sees them in that way, that they first his beautiful creation that he called very good.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Like that is so true. I feel like we can, especially in the Christian side of social media, a lot of us
Right.
are attacative in how we like talk to other people, and we're like, we don't do it in such a graceful manner. Like, yes, we need truth. Like, truth is important,
Right.
but the way we like talk about it needs to be in a way of like care and understanding to the other person, and like truly like being someone who actively listens to other people. And I feel like that often gets neglected in Christianity because a lot of Christians take offense to the smallest thing. And a lot of Christians are the most broken people I know. Like they are the most people like
Right.
aware of their struggles, so like they actively do it, and like it's so evident. Like I know I have been in the comment sections defending something I thought was true when I was like 15 years old, and now I realize I'm like, no, that was stupid of me to do that. Like I shouldn't be doing that. Like there's better ways to handle those conversations, or even to like just be graceful about it. And you look at the early church community, like a lot of them were in hiding about their faith. Like, yes, they were dying for their faith, but they're in hiding, like in these conversations, and they were just being like genuinely good people, and they are dying for it, because of what they were
Right.
speaking about. So it's just like a
Yeah.
different way that we kind of don't realize, especially in the States, and the freedom that we have with our religion and the pridefulness that has come from it too, I believe.
Right. And so what would you say, I mean, is I love how you notice that in Christian like creators there's this need to sort of reshift their attention and reshift the focus on how we can better display Jesus' love, I suppose,
Mm-hmm.
to a community that so desperately needs him as well. It's almost like that the scripture where it says like you'll know each other by the love that you have for one another. So
Mm-hmm.
how would you say as a creator, what's ways that you can like implement that into the community that like we find ourselves in?
Yeah, and like how like we act and like towards others, like on like the platform, or like kind of in what aspect?
Yeah, how we interact on the platforms, and then even I found it. Maybe it's not so much in America, but at least here in Australia, with Christians Christian creators, there's I don't know what the right word would be other than maybe a hesitancy, or maybe there's just a lack of desire to want to collaborate with others. So it's like
Mm,
I'm doing my thing, and I want to build my
mm,
empire and my platform. But there's this less of a desire to serve one another. So I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's just something that can't be done in the creative space. Maybe it is. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that is something I'm actively trying to figure out, and like how I can do for one what I wish I could do for everyone. And that's something I've been trying to implement in my own life. And in the creative realm, it's hard because it's like you're putting in so much work to your own platform, your own goals, your own like things you're trying to
Mm.
that God has called you to do. And you're like, God has called me to do this, and I feel pretty consistent about doing this calling. But it's also like we're called to serve others and to help others, and so I think it's more just being readily available to be open to help others and
Mm.
like answer people's questions, to like be genuine and open to like invites, and like truly set the time out of your day and prioritize that. And I think that starts with like humility and surrender in your own relationship with Christ, and being like, just lead me to where you need me to be. And then it all kind of works out. It's kind of weird.
Awesome.
But
Yeah, no, I love that. The simplicity of really just surrendering your desires and your wants to Jesus, and seeing what he does with them. I like that. Um, just like sort of coming to a bit of a close. What what would you say is some helpful things that people can take away with how to live intentionally with Jesus in the culture that we find ourselves in,
mm,
where there's these constant distractions from his goodness. There's these different cultural idols or distractions or desires, whatever you wanting to call it. How do we live intentionally for Jesus?
yeah, I think it starts with priorities and like how you live your life. I think also, at least in my own life, I've seen this evidently. Is like just how you place you intentionally like place Jesus in your life, and what does that actually look like? Because there's been
Mhm.
days in my life where it's like it's not always going to be exciting. You're not always going to get this crazy revelation by spending time with Jesus, but it's the consistency of it, and it's the friendship aspect of it. Like me hanging out with my best friend for 13 years that I've been friends with my entire life, basically. Like we don't always have to have these crazy events happening in our life to be like, oh, we're hanging out and we're having a good time. We have been friends for so long that
Awesome.
it's like consistent. And that's the same with your relationship with God. Like there's gonna be moments where like you have these high moments, and you're like, oh, this in scripture spoke out to me so much, or I had this impactful moment. But there's also gonna be days where it's gonna be, oh, there's a mundaneness to it, and there's a restful walk to it. And it's not always this chaotic high that we have to be on. Like it's this peace, and it's this love, and it's this
Mm.
joy. It's like what entails in the fruit of the spirit, right? So it's like how can you just walk in step to like
Mm.
what Christ is calling you to, and not be so consumed with like everything else. And I think that
Mm.
focuses on your priorities and being like, okay, it's okay to just be. It's okay to rest. It's okay to not go. At least for me, that's something I've been constantly learning throughout this last year and throughout my life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that because I know you've recently made a post on taking the time not to rush and just to be.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I love what that means and what it does to someone. Um, what are some helpful steps that people can start taking that will help them to slow down, to just be present in the moment, and not be trying to, yeah.
Yeah, I think it just takes time, like looking throughout your day and being like, okay, there's moments and times where I could, like today as an example, like before I got on this podcast, I'm like, okay, I need to film my video. And my friend that I'm staying with, he's like, hey, do you want to go play catch like outside? And I'm like, maybe I might have time, but I have this and I have the podcast. But it's like being intentional, being like, okay, I can film this, and I'm like, I have time to just be and hang out. It's like planning time in your day to
Awesome.
rest, and I think a big thing that's helped me is time blocking. So it's like time blocking for me, like
Awesome.
certain events that are happening in my life to be like, okay, at this time I have work, and at this time I need to get some school done, I need to get the video done. And with that, me actually being intentional with that, not just putting it in my calendar and like forgetting about it, but me intentionally like paying attention to those reminders and being like, okay, I need to do this. It allows me to be present in other moments to be like, oh, I have more time tomorrow now because I got all this done today. And I can just be present. And it's like, what can I do today to make more time for tomorrow, basically? And that's just something in my life where I have been trying to learn. But I think also a big thing that I've kind of talked about earlier is surrender and like surrendering to God every aspect of your life,
Mm.
constantly every day. And being in that act of humility, being like, yeah, I can't do this on my own strength. Like, talks about it in the epistles, like in our weakness we are made strong, and that's because of Christ, not because of
Mm.
us. Like, we are made strong in Christ, and we need to realize that and not be prideful.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love that. And yeah, thanks so much. Something I've really enjoyed in our conversation today has just been your authenticity and your genuineness as well, in terms of being honest with where you're at and the experiences you've gone through, and just open to seeing how God's been there with you and seeing what He will be doing through you. So thanks so much for carving out the time, for time
Yeah.
blocking this conversation. I've really enjoyed it, Jaden, and yeah, I hope you have as well.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you so much, Caleb. It's been amazing to getting a little to know you a little better, to hear the heart about upside down, right? That's right. That's is that it?
Upside down people,
I
yeah, that's it.
Upside down people. Okay. Sorry. It's been really cool to see that and see how intentional you are with these conversations and how much you truly care about what's happening in this world and truly wanting to learn. I just checked out some of your other stuff, and it shows throughout all the rest of the podcasts you have done. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been really awesome.
Awesome. No worries. Chat again soon, hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, whenever.